All right. Uh, Welcome to the project management live streaming session. My name is Chandra MR. You can call me CMR, Chandra, whatever. So I'm known as CMR because I have various different practices on enhancing the people's practices across through a program called CMR Excel. I'm a certified ITL V3 expert, ITL 4 managing professional, PMP, that is project management professional, Prince 2 Agile, Prince 2 Agile Scrum Master, DevOps, and COVID 5. So today we are going to look at understanding about what is project management is all about. So this includes, the topic includes what is project management, what is a project, components of project management, project life cycle, key focus areas in project management. Then we would be looking at understanding job roles in project management certifications, various different certifications we have. But one thing we should keep in mind is while we go through this project management session, we are not going to fully cover on best practices of project management like PMP framework or framework defined by Excel laws, that is Prince 2 framework. So we understand and have a big overview about what is project management is all about. How does any project management practitioner should have in mind while getting into project management profession. There may be certain way of doing project management which I as a practitioner have adopted and doing, and that correction can be made as we get an overview about what is project management and what is that I should know as a project manager. So answering the question, what is project management? So project management by definition is application of knowledge, skills, tools, techniques and project activities to meet project requirements. Now any management for that matter is an application of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to accomplish the objectives, like it may be service management, it may be quality management, or it may be risk management, schedule management, cost management, business management, any management, relevant application of relevant skills, knowledge. And as a manager who is playing the role of management may not do hands-on on it, but I should be fully aware of it. There is a lot of confusion among people. As a manager, should I be an SME of the area where I am managing? Obviously the background of that, some certain amount of experience of that is required, so that you can able to ask the relevant questions, and that will help you in terms of reviewing the progress of something. Similarly, project management itself is a stream of practice to make projects successful, but projects cannot be of the same kind. For example, if I am doing a project in IT field versus project I am doing in civil construction or maybe medical. So each of these technologies changes, the dynamics changes, and I as a project manager should be able to understand those dynamics and know the background of it. Otherwise I cannot ask the relevant questions and make that project successful. So this is a question which always comes to the people. So as a project manager, I get into management, should I be really technically strong? Answer is yes. If not hands-on, you should understand the nitty-gritties of that particular area in entirety. So only then you can able to make that project management stuff or the kind of assignment you have taken successful. Otherwise what happens is you are into that particular area where your team is doing something, you are unable to ask the right questions, and whatever the team is explaining you are not getting. It will become like that. So you should do groundwork. You should know clear understanding about what exactly we are going to implement. For example, I am from telecom and IT background. If I am doing a civil construction project, for example, a building has to be constructed, I don't know mixing of concrete, how it is done, what is that combination. I should do my groundwork. So it is not that we cannot do the project if we are not from the domain area, but you should put effort before you get into that project and understand the end-to-end requirement of that. Right. So the objective of project management is to make final deliverables in a finite time and budget. The moment if I say finite time and budget, it is fixed. So means it is these are the constraints which we need to keep in mind while doing the project management. So obviously the resources, you may speak about human resources, you may speak about technology resources, but one thing which is very limited is time. If you have set a target date, before this particular date it has to happen, obviously you need to have that particular timeline accomplished. You should deliver things within that time. If it is like a research project, like pandemic scenario we have come across, vaccination has to be given. Now, do you really have the time? A big constraint. And money definitely is something which is required for any projects or any investment what organization does. That needs to be managed carefully. Now, every project definitely will have the deliverables. So the deliverables may be like a product or a service or just a result. For example, if I'm manufacturing cars in an automobile industry, or if I'm doing some mobile phone manufacturing or something like that. So it is very tangible in nature. When I say product is the output of a project, very tangible in nature, we can easily explain, articulate and visualize. For example, if you need to make a training, we may require to create a training course material. Now that itself is a project because it is not a small thing. Now the output is very clear, visible to us. Like Microsoft Office is a product. A chair, table is a product. So while we make it, we know by picture, we know by size with some measurement, how does that particular output look like if it is a product. Very easy for us to visualize. But as we say, service is an output of a project. It is not so easy for us to visualize unless we understand the dynamics of the services. Generally in every training what I do, whenever we come across this term service as an output of a project, people tend to have stuck in the thought that helping is a service, or service metrics what you use to measure the performance of the service itself, people think as an output of a project. It is not. For example, we does training as a service. We do training as a service. Now, unless Simplilearn has a trainer, a training content, a platform to present, and people behind working to make this training successful, until I have the processes, people, technology, everything in place, I cannot do training services. So when I say output of a project is service, a training service is output of a project in the sense I should build the capability to do the training services. The building the capability is somewhat what we are doing in the project. Other example, if I want to say, like if I am starting a restaurant services, I need to have a kitchen, I need to have a chef, I need to have a billing system, I need to have a counter, I need to have a dining hall, I need to have a building space, flooring, interior works. Once I complete all of this, I would say I am ready to provide restaurant services. So as part of my project where I am saying service is output of a project, here I am building, constructing or refurbishing the entire interiors of that particular space, recruiting people to serve, to cook, and also creating that kitchen, counters, billing system. Once all of this is ready, my restaurant is ready to do the services. So as part of project, I make all of this ready. So that's what the visualization one should have. So when I create an output of a project, the output of a project can be product or service or a result, I said, but each of these involves configuring resources in certain way. So in product, you configure resources and that itself is given to the customer. Whereas in service, the ownership is never transferred. Now if I'm an organization who manufacture laptop, I sell this laptop and laptop is given to the users who purchases this particular laptop and the ownership is transferred. So user who purchases a laptop can use whenever they want, the way they want. Whereas if I am providing this service like restaurant service or this training service or a taxi service, any services, it will have a service window. I can only subscribe. I cannot own it. So ownership part, when it comes to a product, it is transferred, whereas service, ownership is never transferred. Now third type of output we are speaking about, results. So when I say output of a project is result, which is not a product, which is not a service. We can take a simple example of pandemic scenario where in a specific area there are 1,000 families living, all of them needs to get vaccinated. Now what we can do? We can have a project to have all these 1,000 families vaccinated. So that itself is a project. The result is vaccinated citizens, or out of 1,000 families, only 800 families were vaccinated. So this is a result. There is no particular service or there is no product which we built here. we achieved certain target what we're supposed to achieve, like census we do. Maybe we have taken a drive in the organization to implement some new technology platforms. So we've implemented it, created that result. So likewise, the output of a project would be product, service, or result. So irrespective of the output, definitely all of these type of outputs what we get in would have this constraints relating to time, budget, definitely. So that we should be very carefully understanding, being the project manager. Good understanding we should have. So similarly, there are 6 constraints in the project management we speak about. The 6 constraints would be the scope, time, quality, cost, risk, and resources. So why do we call them as constraints? So any variation in any one of these would have impact on other constraints. For example, if scope we have fixed when we started the project, we have told this is what we need to accomplish. The scope is well understood. Now as we progress further, because of some reason there is a change because of deviation, change because of business asks for the change. Reason can be anything. So to modify that scope, instead of doing 10 things, let us do 12 things. So definitely it will have impact on time. It will have impact on your cost. It introduces new risk, and you need resources additionally to do it. Then quality would also something which you need to look at to do the necessary corrections. So similarly, you take any constraints, whether it is scope, time, quality, cost, risk, or resources, touching on any one of these constraints and any variations whatsoever the reason is in any of these constraints will have an impact on other constraints, which means project manager should be measuring, closely observing how these are performing, what is that we have actually planned, what is our target for all of these 6 constraints. So whatever the type of project you are doing, it may be a project which is with everything is fixed, I'm going like waterfall model, traditional waterfall model, or you may go in a agile project management approaches. In either of that, definitely these 6 constraints are very important to look at and needs to be managed carefully. So now speaking about what is project. Now till now we understood project management and what are those considerations one should have when we speak about project management. So we spoke about what is project management, and while we do project management, what happens at the end of the project, like output of the project, product, service, or results we discussed about. Then we also understood about constraints, 6 constraints of the project, and how each of these constraints will have an impact on other constraints. We discussed about that. Now we will move to understand what is project, right? So by definition, the way PMI defines the project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. Already I mentioned it to you, the difference between product, service, and result. The temporary nature of project indicates that project has a definite beginning and end. The project may be of 4 months, project may be of 4 years or 10 years, but definitely there will be one specific end by accomplishing that objective, or project may also get closed prematurely. Why would any project closes prematurely? Project closes prematurely because of many reasons. So budget is not there, business changed its directions, an organization is acquired by another organization. Look, there's many reasons. So project will have an end, but when you look at project may end by default by completing all that objectives, by accomplishing all that objectives. So the main intent is that I took up a project, business has initiated or invested on certain things and this project to accomplish certain specific objectives, to create a product or to create a result or to create a service, whatsoever it is. The moment the project is taken, while taking, definitely we as an organization should do the reason behind why are we taking this project, that analysis has to be done. So once that is justified, yes, we need to take up this project. So whatsoever the justification is, once the project is taken up, so then you will be having that project objective accomplished. That's what the idea. So only by accomplishing that objective, you will say project is completed. That is a very idealistic scenario, but there are many scenarios where project may end prematurely. So before you accomplish that particular objective of the project or the output or results of the project, without achieving it also, you can close the project, and various different reasons as I mentioned. So we need to know it is temporary. Project is always temporary, and this should not be confused with operations, business as usual. Like if I speak about an operator watching some performance of something, like for example, let us take cloud services. Someone is watching the performance of that particular cloud platform. That person comes every day and does the same thing. Check the same set of parameters and see anything is going as per the plan, or is any deviations, and any deviations initiate that corrective actions. And many preventive actions are taken which are regular basis. Regularly you will be doing the same thing. But project is not like that. You have a specific output to be accomplished, specific results, and accordingly you will have a beginning where the project get triggered, initiated, and you end the project by accomplishing that objective ideally. That's how it is. And project doesn't exist once you accomplish that objective, or as you declare the closure of the project is non-existent from then. Right? So this we need to keep in mind. Project is temporary. It has a beginning, it has an end. Then it produces unique output like product, service, or results, and then it has risks, and projects have uncertainties. I told about premature closure. Because of the uncertainties, project may get pre-closed. That is also one possibility. One important thing what we should keep in mind is every project introduces change to the environment. So for example, if I have refurbished or did an interior works to a place, earlier it was in a different shape, now it is in new state, which is a change what is being introduced. Someone gets into a journey of enabling the employees into certain certification program. Let me say your organization took a call that at least 25 employees in my organization should get certified in some specific technology certification or practice certification, which is non-existent now. Once that project is taken up, after all the 25 people are certified, the change is introduced to environment now. This is a change what has come in. So project introduces change to the environment. In a way, project management is a change management. So that you should keep in mind. Okay, so that's about project. So in summary, when I say project is temporary in nature. Project introduces change. It has risks. It produces unique outputs, product, service, or results. It has a specific start and specific end. So project has 6 constraints which we saw in project management, that is time, budget, then resource, quality, risk. So now we will move to understand what is project life cycle. So when I use the term life cycle, it's always like beginning and end. While we looked at definition of project, we understood project as a beginning and end. So anything which has a beginning will have an end, means it has a life cycle. We as human beings also have life cycle. We take birth and there is death. If you look at a medicine or any product, there is an expiry date mentioned. So the date of manufacturing and date of expiry means that product has a life cycle. Similarly, service. Now postal service, if I take an example, where we used to have we were writing letters to people. Today we send SMS or WhatsApp messages or emails. So that postal service of that nature is non-existent. We are not using it. Whereas messaging service has been replaced by technology. The need of that particular service is there, but the way we fulfill changes. Means service also have the life cycle. So every product have a life cycle, every service has a life cycle. Similarly, project also have the life cycle. So in the life cycle of a project, we speak about 5 areas mainly. So initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, and closure. Now before we go and understand each of these, regarding the relationship between project life cycle and product life cycle, if we need to understand, let us assume a product like a mobile app. When we create, we take up a project. So we took up a project as an organization, created a mobile app, and output of that project is mobile app itself, means we created a product, a platform. So in this case, project life cycle ended in creation of a specific platform, a mobile app, an application, a specific product. So project life cycle ended there after creation of a specific product, whereas product life cycle started from there. I'll repeat this. A project has been taken up to create a mobile application. The output of that project is that mobile application itself, a product. So project life cycle of creating that mobile application ended there. We initiated a project to create that product and we ended that life cycle. From there, product life cycle of mobile application started. Now as the product life cycle of mobile application exists, we keep updating that. We keep modifying that product. To modify, to add features, to delete features, we may take up the projects. So in a product life cycle, there are multiple project life cycle may come up. So now I need to take off this particular product. For that also I will initiate a project. So in a product life cycle or a service life cycle, minimum 2 projects are involved. One project is for creating the product, other project is for retiring that project or moving away from the existing setup. 2 projects minimum. In between the life cycle of the product life cycle, you may have many projects initiated to modify, update, or add new features, functionalities, etc. into that product. And same holds true for service life cycle also. In a service life cycle, at least you will have 2 projects initiated. One is by introducing that service and while removing that service. So 2 project life cycles. In between the service life cycle, you may have many projects initiated. Means in a product life cycle or in a service life cycle, you can have multiple project life cycles. So this picture you should have. It is not other way around. Now speaking about this 5 areas like initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and closure, many people call them as stage or phases, which is not correct. We don't call initiation stage, planning stage, execution stage, monitoring stage or closure stage because they exist throughout the life cycle. For example, I initiate a stage of a project. I can say I initiate a project. Similarly, I can say I initiate a stage of a project. Similarly, I can say I have initiated creation of some feature. Similarly, I can say I initiated an activity. Meaning, each of these are existing throughout the project life cycle parallelly. So if I am initiating something, parallelly I may be executing something else. So project will not have the stages like initiation stage, planning stage, execution stage. Instead, it will have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4 like that. So that is based on what kind of output I am going to create. What kind of project I have taken up. Based on that, you will create a stage. If I am constructing a multi-story building, I will have multiple stages like the ground floor setup is one stage, and then having pillars constructed as a second stage, then wall constructions and ceiling as a third stage. Likewise, I can make stages based on the deliverables, and each of these stages will have all of this: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and closure. Similarly, within that, a specific deliverable would have initiating, planning, execution, monitoring and closure. So when I say initiation is the step for checking the feasibility and measuring the worth of project. So you check the feasibility. Should we take up this project? Should we not take up this project? What is that we are going to accomplish by doing this project? So pre-project stage also the initiating or trigger of project would happen. So we create a business case. We discuss with business stakeholders and decide should we take up this project or not. Now interesting part is before deciding on any specific initiative to be taken up, there may be multiple options we will have. There will be opportunity statement or there may be problem statement. To address it, we may have multiple options or multiple solutions. So which solution is best for me? That we need to decide. So whichever the solution we decide, then you will further analyze that whether this particular solution is worthwhile to take up and move forward. You justify comparing with other solutions, and also once one solution is actually selected or suggested, recommended, taking that particular solution, you will further analyze it in detail before you go and decide I will take up this project. So this is how projects get initiated. So one would check the feasibility, measure the worth of the project. Should we do this or not? So that is about initiation. Now speaking about planning. Now planning is all about, say like waterfall model we speak about, in end to end we will plan. Fixed plan, a blueprint we will have. If it is agile kind of thing, you will have a skeleton planning at the higher level, and then as you progressively you will do planning. You keep updating that plan, right? So you create a blueprint, and this blueprint would be something which you would be referring throughout the project life cycle to check how things are progressing, and that will become a reference point. As you execute and deliver, you check back, am I delivering as we planned? Now this will become tedious exercise if something has a change, requires a change as we progress in the project. In a scenario where multiple changes are coming, uncertainties are high, changes are keep coming, then going with the fixed plan will be always challenging. That's where in the modern business environment, if you see, we are speaking about agility more and more. What is agile? Agile is all about being flexible, adaptable to the changing conditions, moving faster. This is what we speak. The more the uncertainties are, you would become agile. Lesser the uncertainty, you will have a detailed plan. For example, I am going to construct a house for myself. It can be very well planned initially, and then we can go. Minor variations can come in, but not too much. But look at today's projects, what we take up, like projects where we have this mobile app kind of thing as an example, what we took, or any of the civil construction. Today we are seeing like flyover constructions. It is very agile. Every modules are made and that is fixed in the site. Manufacturing happens in some other place. So meaning the amount of flexibility, amount of uncertainty increases. You may require to look at agile way of doing things. So project management actually considers the need of the agility. Similarly, waterfall means that everything is predictable. We call it as adaptable, which is agile, predictable, which is waterfall model. So planning dynamics goes accordingly. Right, so while we plan, definitely we should have a detailed understanding about the requirements. What is that we are going to accomplish? So what requirements are we speaking about? Now customers will have a requirement. To fulfill that, you have a solution. Now to accomplish this solution, then some requirement has to be achieved. Solutions requirement. Now for these solutions, then further you have some resources or some constraints, what we spoke about, requirements associated with that. Then to measure the performance of it, you need to have a measurement methods and metrics. Again, the requirements associated with that. So likewise, multiple level of requirements needs to be analyzed while you plan. So this planning may include planning related to technology, planning related to process, planning related to resources, including human resource and technology resources, measurement methods. And before measurement methods, what should be measured? How should we measure? What metrics make sense? Right? Then reporting and reviewing. So people ignore this part. Metrics they consider, but they ignore on reviewing part. What should be reviewed? When it has to be reviewed? What is the expected result should be? So that people miss out. So that we should be very careful while planning. You cannot miss out on planning part. You should 100% consider that in entirety, right from requirements which is expressed by stakeholders to solutions to technology, resources, then processes, etc. Then methods of measuring and metrics and reviewing. So planning should be end to end. That visualization should be there. So many a time people think project manager coordinates. Coordination is the only way I do management. Management is not about coordination. Coordination and communication is essential in management, which plays very crucial role. But that itself is not project management. So right from initiation, the project management thought starts. So that should be clearly visible. A project manager, we call it as an integrator. If I take PMP as an example, we speak about project integration management, which basically a project manager should have an end-to-end view of the project, a bird's eye view. So saying that I am a bird, I cannot keep flying at the very high and then keep flying. That will not work. So as a project manager, you should come down, see what is the ground reality, then go up, see what is that variations can be seen. So that action should keep happening. So coordination is required to understand what is the on-ground realities. At the same time, going and evaluating with the subject matter experts and you yourself with your ability to analyze things, going up and checking those. That is very important. So only then planning will become very effective, and that results in execution not having any issues. A very good planning always results in hassles-free execution. You may not have any issues while execution. 100% I cannot say that you will have no issues during execution. So on-ground realities which is not seen, unseen by us may come across. So who actually visualize the pandemic scenario? How many of us thought that after pandemic has come in, that all of us will be working from home? We will be relying on the technology. We never thought about it. So that amount of uncertainties definitely remains. So whatever the amount of detailing you go in anything, definitely there will be some amount of uncertainty remains which are unknown to us. So that will come up during execution. So, but only thing mentally and you as well as your team should be ready to handle them, and you should keep analyzing this very carefully. So execution involves allocation of resources and making of the deliverables. Means you have a plan. So as per the plan, you are acquiring the resources, you are configuring that resources, and then implementing them, and there is a deliverable. Now while we do this, very important thing is checking. Did we accomplish what we actually intended to accomplish? Now what is that intended to accomplish? Where will you know that? Obviously in planning. Now last part of planning I told you, reviewing, measuring, consideration of metrics. Metrics are just a number, but that number should have an interpretation. We cannot just leave the number as number. So in parallel that should happen. As I execute, I am checking, is the performance is happening as we plan, is the deliverable is going as we need. That is very important. So then you do monitoring. So execution monitoring go hands in hand. So you may require to ensure right metrics are considered to measure. So this involves monitoring and controlling of working of project. Now project manager, while execution is happening, definitely who is executing, what is being executed, what deliverable should come out of that, at what point in time, at what budget, those definitely needs to be looked, those things needs to be looked at carefully. But at the same time, performance of the deliverable. How is this performance? What is that deliverable is? How this deliverable is actually looking like? What is that intended output was as we planned? Did that happen? And the performance, is it happening accordingly? Is there anything which we can think of further improvising or modifying to the next level, enhancing to the next level with the constraint, within the constraints what we have? So likewise, so we may require to ensure in monitoring and control we have something defined already in terms of metrics, in terms of measurement methods, in terms of templates, in terms of process, in terms of technology. We have defined everything, but that needs to be actioned as per the plan. At the same time, considering the dynamics of the current scenario, very important. So one needs to be very alert on what the variations, what is happening. So one needs to monitor and control that working of the project regularly. And project managers' active presence during the monitoring is very, very important. And because of this, one should not think that project manager is only doing monitoring and controlling. So why does anyone think project manager only do coordination, project manager only does ask questions, project manager comes and takes the inputs and just goes back? So why is that? What is that they are thinking by this? So the problem here is, while project manager is monitoring and controlling, that's when project manager works closely with the team on ground. Otherwise, project manager is not seen by the team generally. Project manager will be with SMEs, project manager will be with the business stakeholders, project manager will be with the customers, project manager will be in the different sites at a different time. So because of these variations, team feels only when manager comes and reviews, monitors and controls, checks. So it looks like coordination, which is not true. But this is very important and very, very essential thing. Without this, one cannot assure or one cannot confirm the accomplishment of the requirements. That's about monitoring. Then speaking about closure. So closure is not one-time thing. Closure happens throughout the project life cycle. So as we take up certain, accept certain requirement from the stakeholders, now we do analysis of that. We create a project charters in initiation part of it. Now completion of project charter, handing over of the project charter, and declaring the assignment of project manager. So formally that activity gets closed. Closure is involved there also. Similarly, in each of the life cycle, in the entire life cycle of the project, you have certain deliverables being done. Okay, formal completion of the deliverables. Yes, it is done. There should be formality which one has to do. That is also closure. At the end of a phases, you do closure activity. At the end of the deliverables, you do the closure activity. So likewise, closure is a stage of the project. It definitely happens in final stage of project, but everywhere across the project, during the project life cycle, you keep confirming and closing them. Right? So while you do that, obviously one has to understand whether everything is complete as per the requirements. Means monitoring and controlling should confirm, yes, everything is happened according to what we need. So closure is the final stage of the project for sure, but it is the final thing of everything what we do. If I am planning, there is an end for the planning. If I am executing something, there is an end for that execution as well. Right? One moment, I think our is it okay now? I guess it's okay. Alright, so as we close certain things, as we accomplish certain results, as we complete certain activity, we initiate that closure part of it. We close them formally. So that's about closure. So initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closure. Many times people think after execution we can just jump into closure, which is not true. You cannot jump into closure immediately after execution. It has to pass through monitoring and control. Assume during monitoring and control something did not work. Something did not go as per the plan. That requires correction. So that correction definitely has to go back to execution, or again if you require certain planning being done, you may require to do it, and then you would further close it after completion of that particular thing as per the plan fully. So that's about closure. Then key focus areas in the project management. So what are the key focus areas in the project? We'll look at that. So till now we looked at what is project management. We understood what is project, and we also looked at various different areas in the project management. We discussed about life cycle also. Life cycle, product life cycle, service life cycle, project life cycle we discussed. Now let us look at focus areas in the project management. So key focus areas, as I mentioned, about 6 constraints. Obviously scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, stakeholder. So each of these areas are very essential. So the engagement should happen to handle all of this. So very critical. If any one of these areas, some failure, things may not go in the directions required. So for example, if I say scope, what is scope? Now scope you can visualize like a boundary. Right? By definition, it refers to inputs provided to take the project from the first step to last step, which determines features, boundaries, budget, deadlines of the project. Now broadly, if I look at the scope, you can look at the scope of the output, the deliverable, versus scope of those activities, scope of that actions, processes required, resources required to accomplish that results or deliverables. So if I am creating a laptop, which is an output of a project, I should speak about laptop configuration, laptop's features, functionality, measurement of the size of the laptop. So all these are scope of the product, scope of the output. Now to do this, to bring this as an output of a project, I may require to have a motherboard, keyboard, touchpad, or a display system, all of this needs to be integrated in a certain way, correct? So these resources I need, and each of these resources will have a specifications, and all of these resources has to be taken, configure them in certain way, right? Only then I will have a laptop as an output. So one is the scope of the product itself, other one is the resources required, the features, functionalities, specification of that particular resources, and the process of creating them, and the resources required to create them. All this comes under project scope. So broadly you can visualize this: product scope, then project scope. So without product scope means scope of that output, you cannot have the project scope. So it starts from that output, what I am going to create, scope of that particular output, what I am creating, and what is that resource process required. So that's what falls under project scope, which we need to manage to accomplish that results as we planned. Next is about schedule. So schedule is about timeline, what we're speaking about, the time of beginning, time it ends, what activity, right from, if you look at a project end to end, there is a timeline. If you look at a specific activity to start, there is a timeline. If you look at a process to start and end, there is a timeline. Likewise, a plan for performing specific work within particular time interval and achieving the desired objective. The schedule refers to the start date and finish date and the duration of the project. Now, there are two things what we speak about: duration and effort. Now, if I say to create certain thing, it requires 100 human days. 100 human days of effort is needed. But in how many days I can do it? I should do it in 25 days. 25 days is the duration. Now, meaning in each day, how much of effort I should put in man days or human days of kind of thing. So meaning 100 divided by 25. At least 4 man days of effort I should put, so that in 25 working days, I can have 100 man days of effort being put. So that need to analyze. Many times you may see variations in this also because of the variations in the resources, skills and capabilities what you have in the system. So schedule variation will happen because of that. So you should be carefully understanding and handling. So this has a timeline. The timeline is for deliverable, but the required resources process has to happen accordingly. So this may get impacted because the available resources is not as per what we required. The timeline is different. I wanted today, but it is delayed by 3 days. It cannot happen. So that needs to be handled very carefully, and they require certain proactiveness to handle it. Then cost. Definitely there is an investment to be done. Every project doesn't bring revenue. Please keep this in mind. We don't use the terminology revenue when we speak about the money factor relating to project. It's always cost, which is a money which is outgoing. When I say cost, it's always outgoing thing. So that we need to estimate, we need to have a funding for that. There needs to be action taken every now and then to ensure that the project is happening within that budgeted value, right? So only then you can justify. I wanted to have a product which with 100 whatever the currency, and I have a plan of my business case I'm speaking about. So I have a plan of selling this for 125 each piece. So now 25 I'm assuming is a profit. Now if I don't do the project within 100 and it has become 110, now I lost profit there in the business perspective. So similarly, if it becomes 130, it doesn't make sense for me to do that project at all. So likewise, so business justification is very essential, and budgeting consideration is not just about to do this project, it takes so much. It is not just about that. For business, is it making sense? That is another thing. Considering all of that, the budget is actually allocated to the project. So you as a project manager should understand what is the background of this project, why the project was triggered, and what are the constraints they have. So unless you understand that, you cannot take the project to the required direction and cannot do within that particular allocated budget. Now, speaking about quality, quality is about meeting the requirements what is being defined. So every deliverable will have a specifications, every process will have a metrics, every resources will have certain metrics to look at. So quality has to accomplish those. Quality is all about accomplishing the defined requirements. You set high grade, low grade, irrespective of that, whatever the grade is set, you may require to accomplish accordingly. So it includes the processes, activities that are to be performed to meet objectives and requirements for which it was undertaken. So for this you may do audit, you may do testing, you may do quality assurance, quality control. That should be in place. One cannot ignore that part. Then to do any of this you need resources. It may be technology resource, it may be human resources, etc., who help in carrying out a specific activities or tasks in the project in the best possible manner. It can be people, equipment, funds, facility, whatever needed for accomplishing the project requirements. Now resources we estimated, fine, but availability of that resources at a specific point in time is very important. At a specific point in time, it cannot be delayed. If I want to have a resource at a certain point in time, yes, I want to have the resource exactly at that point in time. I cannot delay. If that delays, obviously it will have a direct impact on your quality, direct impact on your cost, schedule, all other constraints. Then stakeholders. Stakeholders plays very important role in the project. Who can be the stakeholders? All that entities, individuals who are around the project, who will get influenced, impacted directly, indirectly, and they will also have an impact and influence directly, indirectly. For example, if I am doing a project of constructing a bridge, a flyover, for example, who are the stakeholders here? I cannot just say government agency is a stakeholder, the team who is doing the project is a stakeholder. I cannot just limit my thought to that. The citizens who are living in that area, they are very important stakeholders. Similarly, the people who commute regularly, even though they are not living there, they commute regularly. So they are the stakeholders. So likewise, we need to stakeholders exist internally as well as external to the organization. So we should ensure each of the stakeholders and their dynamics are understood, and what kind of engagement we should have with these stakeholders. How regularly we should have that engagement with these stakeholders. What are the needs of the stakeholders? That needs to be understood, and your engagement should ensure you are fulfilling those accordingly. Right? So stakeholders are the ones who have an interest in the deliverables of project. They can be part of project team, project managers, sponsors, customers and users in a simpler way, but it is beyond. It may be an organization, it may be an individual. For example, when you attend this training session, for example, you registered for some training session with Simplilearn and you are attending the training. Now, can we call the family member of the participant as a stakeholder? Answer is yes. To what extent? Simplilearn doesn't manage them, but definitely consider them as a stakeholder who are very distant, not near. So participant, will may instruct the participant, please mute yourself. So there should not be any disturbance. That way, for Simplilearn, in Simplilearn's perspective, the stakeholder is far. Need not do anything. Simplilearn need not do anything but recognize and instruct the participants, please mute, there may be noise from your end. But when it comes to a scenario where the participant's perspective, if you look at, that stakeholder is near to that participant, direct impact. So stakeholder has to do something. That particular participant in their context, to make their training successful, they need to do something. Inform the family members or ensure you're sitting in a silent place where you can concentrate fully and involve likewise. So that way, identification of stakeholders, analyzing on what kind of engagement we should have with stakeholders, what is the requirement of stakeholder relating to this project. While you do this, it is very contextual. As a project manager, I look at the stakeholders in my project's perspective. So a customer member with whom I am conversing every day, the context of that being a project manager, I will have an engagement in certain way. Whereas my team member, a project team member, the context will change while they engage with that particular person. So that dynamics one needs to understand. We cannot make it very same kind of description of stakeholder for a different context. As the context changes, the dynamics of stakeholders changes, and also the way you need to engage with stakeholder will also change. Please keep this in mind, and you may require to educate this to your team members also, being a project manager. So alright, this is about key focus areas in the project management. So 7th, communication. As I mentioned, communication and collaboration plays a very important role while we have this project management. So once, I think one of the surveys says 90 to 95% of the times project manager keeps communicating. Project manager needs to communicate. It is very essential. So a communication ability, ability of a project manager to communicate plays a very important role, very critical, very crucial. So one needs to keep this in mind. So you should practice your communication. You cannot ignore. Many a times you see that my performance will speak, I need not speak. That will not work. As we see in a sales and marketing, where customer engagement and regular interactions matters, similarly in project management is very essential. For the success of the project, the communication will play its role. So it may make or break the project. We should be careful accordingly. Right, so communication among all stakeholders is an essential aspect of project management for successful project execution. Improving communication increases the ratio of success and decreases the probability of risk. Now, risk, many times we speak with the negative context. So definitely risk is not about negative alone, but here it is spoken in a negative context. So risk is positive also. Please keep that in mind. Then coming to risk. So risk is all about an uncertainty, an unexpected event. So for example, we are doing this session. In what probability the power would go off, in what probability internet would fail, in what probability the platform itself would go down. There is some probability. We cannot say 100% it will not go down. We cannot say. There is probability. So to the extent of that probability, we have that uncertainty. So when it becomes a reality, when that fails, when that occurs, then it is an event to manage. It's an incident to manage. So meaning whenever I use the term risk, it is always in the future. Next moment the power may fail, still it is in future. So it is uncertainty, something which we are having an impact on whatever we are doing. It may be positive impact, it may be negative impact. So what can be positive risk example? Now I thought I will have around 50 people coming into the session, and interestingly I have 75 people participate in the session, out of which all the 75 registered for training. Good thing, positive risk. That is uncertainty actually. So I expected 30 people, 50 people to 70 people came in, and all the 75 registered for training. Positive thing, uncertainty. Can I rule out on that? No, that probability also exists, positive risk. So 75 people came, only 10 people registered. That is also kind of uncertainty, negative, right? So it may be related to the project, people, technology, resources, right? So our aim should be identify our risk throughout the project life cycle and ensure that each of these risks are analyzed. And risk is very dynamic. As you progress in the project life cycle, the impact, the probability of occurrence of that keeps varying, right? So because earlier it was nothing was there in the place. As you kept doing the project, you introduce many things into the environment, and that brings in new kind of risks. So that you should be very careful analyzing and handling it. That's about risk. Then procurement. Everything we do involves procurement. We procure, for example, for this session, we have the procurement of internet, for example. So every project, every business, what we do, procurement is involved. So project managers should be well aware of what are those we are procuring. There should be decision on make or buy. Right, before when you start the project, I am going to buy this, means I need to purchase this. I will make myself this particular portion, depending on our subject matter expertise. So since we are speaking about procurement, obviously we may require to know what are the processes relating to procurement in our organization. And I, as a project manager, cannot become a procurement manager, but I need to know who is the procurement manager and engage with the procurement manager accordingly. And I should comply to that process. I cannot deviate. So that awareness should be there. Then critical success factors. When we say critical success factor, obviously it refers to the area, the factors which we need to consider to measure. So once I accomplish these factors, these objectives, I become successful in this project. Critical success factor. Now each of the critical success factors should have the KPIs, key performance indicators. So I need to have metrics to measure. That's what key performance indicators are. So each of the critical success factors should have the KPIs to measure, and once we accomplish that metrics, we can say we accomplished that critical success factor. What can be critical success factor for a training as an example? all the topics planned are completed. That is critical success factor. Now what can be KPI? 5 topics I have planned, I completed all the 5 topics. KPI, right? So it should have a measurement, and what is that I am going to interpret, perceive while measuring this particular metrics. That's what critical success factor would be speaking about. Then speaking about deliverables, obviously we spoke about it multiple times, which is an output of the project, which may happen regularly throughout the project life cycle, and it can be have externally or internally, depending on what kind of project you have. I've taken up a project which is very internal to my organization, so you have internal stakeholders, and the deliverables happening from this will be having implementation internally in the organization. Whereas external, I may deliver it to the external customer. So as I mentioned earlier, that scope of the deliverable, product scope, should be very clear. Then work breakdown structure. As we know what is the deliverable, as we understand what needs to be accomplished, we also spoke about having list of things like what needs to be done, what process we need, what resource we need. Once we have that list of things, only then we can action them, put them into action and deliver them. For that I need to have a detailed thing. So we do decomposition, top-down decomposition of the items. For example, if I take laptop again, I'll take an example, ease of visualization. If I do the breakdown of laptop, which is product breakdown first always, I would break down like hardware and software first. Then hardware part I would break down like keypad, touchpad, body, display. Likewise I will separate them. Further breakdown I would do for each of this. So likewise I do the product breakdown first. Then from bottom up I keep adding resources, effort, cost, risk, everything analyze, and I consolidate. So entire thing we call it as work breakdown structure. So without work breakdown structure, one cannot have a deliverable visualized properly. And what is that effort is involved, what is that cost involved, visualizing that in entirety will become challenging. Then job roles in the project management. So till now we understood what is project management, what is project life cycle, product life cycle, outputs of project, constraints of project. Then we spoke about key factors of project management. Now let us look at what are the job roles typically we come across. So job roles can be steering committee member, a project manager, senior project manager, project lead, resource manager, resource management office analyst. Now project manager, as we know, who takes up the project, owns that in entirety, lead and ensure that project is accomplishing the required results. So project manager has to manage, review, prioritize, and tasks wherever required, and which involves all the 6 constraints we spoke about and all the deliverables. So typically based on the survey in the market, the kind of salary what a project manager can expect is actually mentioned here. It is indicative actually, it's not absolutely that number. It will have its own variations depending on a kind of domain area the project is being done. If I am doing a project management for a cloud infrastructure versus I am doing a project for a civil construction, huge difference, right? Depends on industry also and type of technology related project. For example, I am working on a project for satellite launch. Dynamic is different, so it would vary accordingly, and it applies to all that roles what I mentioned. So whatever the number is mentioned, it's on an average what we found in the market is mentioned. So speaking about senior project management manager, so head of whole project management plan, maybe handling bigger projects, complex projects, not the simpler ones. Maybe senior person having a very good experience and expertise across, right? And the salary would vary like along with the allowances and bonuses. And for example, one of the projects I have done like work style innovation. I'll not mention the organization. So this is a global organization where we have required to bring everything into same platform. So even though managing director was a designation of the person who was a project manager for that project, who was working on the role of project management for this particular project. So likewise, complexity of the project matters, accordingly it takes. So I'm not speaking about that complexity when I say senior project manager, I just gave an example of that kind. Speaking about project lead, so one who leads the people throughout the project and provide them with all the information required throughout, engages with team, motivates the team, helps project manager or assist project manager in various different ways, creates the registers, maintain the registers, update the registers, etc. So here the particular salary perspective, look at it, looks like what is given there, which is lesser than project manager obviously. Then resource manager, so human resource, what we're speaking about, who would actually looks at assigning the people to the project, managing employees within the project, assignment, and then giving that details of what role has to be done by that particular resource, and their salary variations would look like this. Then if I look at the next role, that is project management office analyst, PMO, right? So works within the PMO and does most of the data driven work, so analyzing and interpreting data concerning the project, figuring out future risks to the project, finding new ways to advance the idea of project management. So typically this role, what happens is working within the PMO setup, where PMO will have visibility to multiple projects. So the inputs what is provided by this PMO analyst would actually help in optimizing resources, optimizing cost, and sharing of the resources across the project. Likewise, it helps in a lot in the program management as well. So then steering committee member. So member of this committee would work on the project themselves. They help the project manager on various different conditions by providing the inputs on the projects, on the budget, what is being used, what is not utilized, where do we stand in the project perspective, and any feedbacks which comes up for the questions from the project managers. Steering committee member would be providing those, and this is a salary which you can. These are the few roles what we actually captured. It doesn't mean only these many roles are there. If you look at, we have not even spoken about the roles in agile project management kind of scenarios. So definitely that has a different dynamics and different set of rules. So then various different certifications, what we have: industry recognized certification, globally recognized certification for project management. So we can speak about PMP, that is project management professional. We have agile certified practitioner, which is PMI ACP, again offered by PMI. Then CAPM, certified associate in project management, again from PMI. Then certified scrum master, Prince 2 from Axelos. Then speaking about PMP, project management professional, this certification is offered by PMI. So training partner, definitely Simplilearn would do the training in all of that certification area we mentioned. And this particular certification, examination cost, examination pattern, and duration of the examination mentioned here. Now this examination pattern, where we are saying 200 multiple choice questions, I think we have missed to update that. It is 180 questions, 230 minutes duration of the examination, not 4 hours fully. 4 hours comes to 240 minutes. It is 230 minutes and 180 questions in the latest pattern from the date the new version has been released. So otherwise the exam fee remains $405 for PMI member and $555 for PMI non-member. So examination will have 180 multiple choice questions and duration will be 230 minutes. Then prerequisite to take up this particular examination, one should have an experience of 36 months. So 3 years, if I say we are trying to indicate about 36 months, and that 36 months need not to be continuous. There may be break in between, no issues. Multiple projects or single project, doesn't matter. And 35 hours of project management education, right? If someone is not a graduate, a bachelor's degree graduate holder, that person need to have 60 years of project management experience and 60 years of project professional experience, and that requires, again, the education part of it remains 35 contract hours. And after certification, that is valid for 3 years, and you may require to renew the certificate by producing 60 PDUs. 60 PDUs has to be earned through 2 ways actually, by getting new certification, new areas of education. I think that understanding you will get thoroughly when you go through PMP training. And other 24 PDUs may come across like giving back to the project management thing. So you go through that. Whenever you get into PMP training, you will have a detailed understanding of that. And speaking about Agile Certified Practitioner, again offered by PMI. to bring in the project agile aspects into project management. So one thing you should keep in mind when we say agile is not just about project. Agile can be applied in business as usual and operations also. So keeping that in mind, when we say agile certified practitioner ACP, PMA ACP in the project context, so this is being depicted. So otherwise agile practices can be put into any practices, like in my business as usual also I can practice agile. So exam fee, exam duration and pattern is given. So now prerequisite perspective, 2000 hours of project management experience, 1500 hours agile experience and 21 contact hours of agile practices education. So 30 PDUs every 3 years for renewing that certificate. Speaking about CAPM, so someone who does not have big experience in the project management, they can go for CAPM, and this does not ask for any big experience as such. The examination is of 150 questions and 3 hours. So prerequisite is about PMP education. I mean that's CAPM training is a prerequisite. That's all. No project management experience is expected. And then examination has to be taken every 3 years. And validity is again 3 years here as well. Speaking about certified Scrum Master, so this is an entry-level certification which helps practitioner to understand what is the Scrum Master role is all about, what is Scrum framework is all about. And then this is the certification from Scrum and Alliance, right? So exam fee, again exam can be taken in a training institute itself. So institute to institute it would vary. So 16 hours, 2 days training and 50 multiple choice questions. Examination duration will be 60 minutes. Then there is no prerequisite as such. So one has to renew the certificate every 2 years. Speaking about projects in controlled environment, Prince 2. This is from Axelos. These certifications come from Axelos, UK based. Well, PMI is US based. Axelos is UK based, and both PMP and Prince 2 has its own value by itself. And this certification is of 2 levels. One is foundation, other one is practitioner. So foundation level certification doesn't require any prerequisite as such, whereas practitioner level of examinations required foundation certification as prerequisite. So examination is of 60 minutes for foundation, 150 minutes for practitioner, and you will have 60 questions in foundation, whereas 68 questions in practitioner. Alright, so 20 CPDs per year one has to earn. Based on that, every 3 years the certification can be renewed. Otherwise one has to take the examinations again. So that's about what is project management session. I hope this has given you some insight about what is project management, what is project, what are the constraints in the project, what are the key factors in the project, then difference between project life cycle and product life cycle, various different roles in the project management, and then various different certifications offered by Simplilearn as well as the project management certifications available. And that's about me from my end. If there are any questions, I will take up and then I can answer those.